Hey y'all, welcome to the Visit Roswell podcast where we talk all things tourism and hospitality related in Roswell, Georgia. We will be interviewing our partners all throughout the community and hopefully inspiring you to plan a trip to visit Roswell at your natural pace.
Hello, everyone. This is Andy Williams, Executive Director of Visit Roswell, and welcome back to another episode of Crafting Roswell, where we talk all things hospitality with all of our tourism partners throughout the community. And we're very excited about today's guest, but we have another local small business with us who is doing some amazing things and getting a lot of good foot traffic into this particular business. And I'm not going to steal her thunder, but it's a pleasure for us to have Natalia Beley with Evimero on. Welcome aboard.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me.
You got it. So let's just jump right into it so that our audience members can learn a little bit about you and your particular business. Give us a little background on yourself and how you came to open up Evimero.
So my background is in retail buying and merchandising. So that's, I went to college for that. I worked in that industry for a while as a buyer, as a merchandise manager. And I'd always thought about opening my own store. I think if you kind of have that retail kind of mindset, like one of the things you always kind of dream about is having your own store. And my dad owned his own store my whole life growing up. So I kind of have that entrepreneurial kind of small business kind of runs through my blood, I think.
Right.
And so in 2020, finally at the beginning of the year or the end of 2019, I just kept thinking about it more. And there was a fair trade store in the town we used to live in. We actually just moved here in 2019 to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a fair trade store that I used to shop at that I loved. And there was another kind of like artisan gift shop. And I was like, it would be awesome to combine these two things. And we moved here to Roswell. And I was like, there's nothing like this here. I'm just really like surprised. And so, my husband was like, why don't you try to do it? And so at the beginning of 2020, I actually worked on launching the website first.
Okay.
And then launched the website in March. Not knowing that COVID was going to be like a whole thing that it is. And, kind of trudged along, and in August had the opportunity to rent this little space on Canton Street that had been vacant for a long time. And, my husband was like, let's go for it. You got to like take some risks or, you'll never know.
Right.
So, and kind of thinking like it's COVID, but I'm like, if I can survive through this year, if I can make it work in 2020 and kind of coming out of that, I'm like, I know I could make it work at a regular time. So,
right.
Yeah. So we just kind of dove in and
Here you are.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that space too, because, you're on Canton Street. How did you search for that? How'd you locate it? What was the, any kind of build out or design within the space? What did that all look like?
So that property is actually, I'm sure you're familiar with it, has been vacant for a while. And there's a front building, and I'm actually in the outbuilding, which was probably an old carriage house originally for that property, which is probably at this point over 100 years old. And so I actually called the owner and just said, hey, have you ever thought about renting out that little space in the back? And he was like, if you're interested, we could probably make it work.
Yeah.
So, so my store is really small. It's like less than 500 square feet. And my husband and I and our awesome neighbor friends, like just kind of cleaned it all out and repainted it and just did kind of like a labor of love. It was just like the four of us kind of just getting it ready, because we really, knowing that it was a new business and we were really trying to like be wise about managing our cash flow. And, we didn't want to make a huge investment because we weren't really sure if it was going to work. So we just kind of dove in like head first, just trying to do as much of it as we could. And my husband, thankfully, is super handy. So yeah, we got the little, I call it like the little shop on Canton Street, and we
Yeah,
just got it, ready. And
that's
so it's
awesome.
nice to kind of have like a little bit of life back there in that little spot. So
Sure. And I didn't, so it wasn't officially on the market. You were proactive and approached the owner about it. And that's how you ended up. Okay.
yeah.
That's a
Mhm.
cool story. All right.
Mhm.
Well, so kind of moving on, let's talk a little bit about the actual customer base for you all. So, are there any products that you offer that set yourselves apart, or what's the lay of the land as far as what you're selling to your customers?
Yeah, so my shop is a fair trade and artisan market. So everything that I carry in the shop is either fair trade or ethically sourced from overseas. So
Hmm.
I really try to like do the due diligence, make sure that what I'm carrying is like sustainably sourced, that they're, paying fair wages, that they're just trying to do some kind of like either social good.
Hmm.
And I carry a bunch of local makers as well,
Okay.
and some other hand makers. So kind of what I always try to kind of ask myself when I bring in like a new brand or a new product is like, are they doing something like redeeming or restorative in the world? So some of my brands are, like I said, social entrepreneurships that are, I carry a candle line that is working with women coming out of sex trafficking in the Houston area.
Oh, wow.
I are they in some way supporting another small business? So, like I said, I
Hmm.
carry a bunch of like women makers who are just like small businesses, kind of, craft kind of small batch businesses in the community that has been like amazing to get to know, you know,
Yeah.
some of my makers. Like I carry a few brands here from like the Milton and Roswell area. And it's just been nice
Hmm.
getting to know them, getting to know
Yeah.
people who are actually like making this and like trying to start up their own business. They're trying to grow and start their own businesses. And a lot of them are, making things out of their house and just like hustling, just like all of us
Right.
now. So that's been super fun. So,
Yeah.
um,
That's incredible.
so it's like redeeming, restorative, or um, another, small business that I can help kind of cheer on and champion. And I really try to promote my businesses. Like some businesses don't want to really talk about like necessarily the brands because there's a lot of competition, but I really try to promote the makers as much as
Mhm.
myself. Like I just think of it more as like a collaborative relationship.
Yeah, it seems like that, and that's awesome because I didn't know that even. So I think it's really killing two birds with one stone. You're supporting local, you're supporting something that's doing good in the world, and you're also purchasing something that you either like or that's functional. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Okay, well, so you're fairly new to the community, and you'd mentioned this a little bit earlier about the actual pandemic, but um, gosh, I mean, you really have taken on a lot up front because you're moving into this location and it's bam, let's knock this out and get it done. March happens, obviously, so you didn't see that coming. Like none of us and none of our businesses did. What impact did it have on you opening up and being able to bring business through the doors?
Um, I mean, we're in kind of a unique place in terms of like Georgia has remained relatively open.
Hmm.
Well, we had that Georgia. I didn't open till August, so things were relatively open. I think it's been an interesting time. I think for small businesses, in that I think it's brought a lot of light to small businesses, the pandemic at the same time. Like it's been super challenging, but
Hmm.
it's also just made people much more aware, I think, of how integral and how important like local businesses are to the community, you know?
Right.
And I almost think in some ways that's been like a blessing. I think a lot of people kind of, not that they take it for granted, but
Mhm.
they kind of think like, oh, that business is fine, it'll be there. But
Right.
like the pandemic has really shown light on the fact that like a lot of businesses, not just like retail stores like mine, but restaurants, all those things, like there's people behind those businesses and they're the people that live in
Right.
your community. It's not just this, you know, person kind of sitting in this corporate
Yeah.
office, it's like the people that you go to for, sponsorships when you have like a swim team or you have, soccer team. It's like those are the people that you go to. You go to the people in your community. So they're small businesses, and so it's kind of an interesting time, I think. There's also really been, I think, a lot of light shed on kind of things being more sustainably sourced, on local makers, on like small batch kind of products. So
Mhm.
in some ways, like I feel like it's kind of like a renaissance or like a really exciting time for businesses because people are just so much more aware of
Mhm.
the people in their communities who are just like hustling and trying to make things work.
Right.
I mean, I'm always like in awe of like the restaurant people in our community who,
Mhm.
restaurants are such a hard business. And I'm like people will be like, oh, you're so brave to like open a store. And I'm like, really? I'm like, because I think there's a million other businesses out here that are like scarier than this, like, and they're like
Sure.
hustling, just trying to like survive every day. And
Right. Well,
so and this community is great. I will say, like especially at least in my experience, like the downtown Roswell community, like the people who live
right.
in that area of like historic Canton Street, um, are pretty supportive, I think, of like businesses in their community.
Right.
So they're all that. I mean, I have customers who like come in and are like, I'm shopping here because I want to like support you and I want to support your business. And, so which has been like amazing.
And it was really interesting, and I agree. And Natalia, you're not the first person to say that. It's funny because the easy thing to do is say, "Oh, the pandemic crushed us, and we had to really bounce back," and all that good stuff. But it's been refreshing to hear, hey, it really created some new opportunities to appreciate the community that's been built here in Roswell. And I think you certainly saw that with the restaurants because you know the restaurants in particular had to really look to the local residents who are in the 30075 and 76 zip codes to get through. And obviously with the boutique retailers and even the services, other hospitality services in the community, that same thing was true. And one of our restaurateurs has a good saying: you either have community or you don't. You built that or you haven't. And I think we've seen a lot of different individuals that are local here, or at the very least, even uh, folks from out of the community that often come to Roswell, and they kept coming to Roswell and supporting these local small businesses, and repeat businesses has been big for this. And you're spot on. I think there has been a spotlight definitely shined on the local artisan, the local craft maker, the local goods provider, and we're starting to see that, and that's certainly a good thing. And I think people who have been through your doors and see what you're doing, and I love that. I'm almost considering like the philanthropic component of your business with fair trade, and I mean it's incredible, and those are the things that are going to keep people coming back in addition to community. So commend you for doing that. I learned something new. Well, let's talk a little bit too about, outside of that we just mentioned, what's one thing about yourself or your business that maybe, local residents, or, your customers don't know about you or Evimero?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. I don't know. Well, I always try to remind everyone that I have a website. I ship, all over the country. So some people have started to
Okay.
come and they will like shop for something and have me like shop for a gift, and I'll, send it out for them. So
Yeah.
that's always like something I'm always trying to remind people of, if
Mhm.
they're looking for gifts and things like that. So something I guess about me too is I'm first generation American. Both of my parents are immigrants. So
Okay.
I always like to like share a little bit of that story because I'm like proud of that, and I'm proud
Yeah.
of my parents for, coming to this country and like building. My dad had his own business, and
Hmm.
so I just am like cheer on like immigrants and people who like take those risks to,
Hmm.
come here and make a better
Yeah.
life for the family and stuff. So yeah, and that's something that I think people don't know about me.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's great to know. I didn't realize that either. Well, so not to put you on the spot and to play favorites, but do you have a few different products that are high selling that you think everybody needs to come in and see, or is it really kind of a diverse mix that's always changing?
I do try to always like bring in new products. I'm always looking for new vendors. And because a lot of the things that I carry are small batch, like I don't necessarily have the ability to always reorder the same thing. So I always tell people, like, if you see
Mhm.
something you like, I'm not 100% sure that I'll be able to reorder that exact same item, So
Right.
if you like it, you might need to get it. And sometimes I'm just trying to diversify my assortment.
Mhm.
So I might not bring that in again because I want to bring something else in that's different. But
Mhm.
definitely, I carry a line of T-shirts that has been like a great seller for me. They're Chatterbomb clothing T-shirts, and they
Okay.
have like a graphic on the outside, but they have a message on the inside chest that's supposed to be a message close to your heart. So it's always like
Mhm.
something like encouraging. And Jessica, who owns Chatterbomb, lives in Canton, so
Okay.
she's a local business as well, and her T-shirts have done super well for me, and I have a great relationship with her, so that's been fun. And then I carry a locally made line of lotions and shower scrubs,
Mhm.
K&S Soapworks, and they are out of Milton. So Stephanie started that business in Milton, and she has been like killing it, and it's been fun getting to know her. So it's been interesting that like a lot of my like best selling things are
Mhm.
local. It just happened to be like locally made, like right
Yeah,
here, in
that's
our
awesome.
area. And then of course, like fair trade jewelry, like all the jewelry. I mean, I sell a lot of jewelry,
Mhm.
easy kind of gifting and just fun and affordably priced. And I really try to keep my pricing pretty fair and reasonable, um, so that, people can just pick something up as a gift for something and not feel like they have
Mhm.
to spend like a boatload of money.
Oh yeah, sure. Totally understandable, especially right now. We want to certainly keep our small businesses moving successfully, though. That's for sure. So appreciate you sharing that. And let's talk about Roswell specifically as a community. You'd mentioned the community of the downtown, kind of the Canton Street area, historic Roswell, and obviously being a newer resident yourself. If you had, someone from out of town, whether it was a friend or a family member coming into town, you had a Saturday to spend with them, to take them around, to really show off the community, how would you show them Roswell?
Well, of course, I would take them to Canton Street. I think that's kind of like the place that we
Hmm.
normally take friends, like when or family when they come in, just because of
Hmm.
like, all the great restaurants and just that charming kind of old historic kind of feel. I mean, that's
Hmm.
actually one of the things that drew us to the Roswell area because we're from the Northeast, where
Okay.
all of our cities are, for lack of a better word, they're older,
Yeah.
like so we're from the Philadelphia area. So
Hmm.
that felt like historic Canton Street felt most like home to us,
Okay.
um, because it just had that kind of historic vibe, and like the buildings aren't all the same. There's a little bit of like uniqueness, and
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean that's our kind of go-to place. But we love going down to the Chattahoochee and like the Riverwalk area and the mill. We've like discovered the mill, and that's such like a beautiful area because people are
Oh
always
yeah.
coming in and asking me, like, a lot of the people that come into the store aren't necessarily from Roswell.
Right.
So they're always kind of like asking me for like restaurant recommendations and like what else,
Hmm.
where else to go. And I'm always like, there's so much to do. We have so much like outdoor, so many great outdoor areas.
Right.
Um, and just like little, like I said, like the mill is just like a little, you go back there and you wouldn't even realize I was back there. And it's so special with
Hmm.
the waterfall um, and the Chattahoochee Nature Center. I mean, we just have so
Yeah.
many great outdoor areas. It's just, I mean, there's a lot to do in our community.
Right. We hear that a lot. And especially with visitors that come up, say, for a day trip from the Atlanta area, whether they're from the area, but maybe haven't discovered Roswell, or if they're here for a convention and it's a quick day trip up, they come here and, perhaps they've been told, hey, you got to go up to Canton Street. There are great restaurants in that area. And then they hear about the Chattahoochee Nature Center or the Chattahoochee River or the trails down at Old Mill Park and Vickery Creek Falls and all that good stuff. And it's very common for us to hear, gosh, you guys are not that far from Atlanta, and it feels like we're worlds away. And there's so much diverse activity to do, and we love it. I mean, that's what makes a tourism product mix successful, Well, this has been fantastic, and what I want to do is end it with an opportunity for you to tell our listeners where they can get information on Evimero, and then what social media outlets you utilize to communicate, what you're doing and where the information is.
Great. Well, I have a website, evimeromarketplace.com. And I do a lot of stuff on social media. I do a lot on Instagram. So at Evimero Marketplace is my handle. And I am on there all the time. I do lots of lives where I always talk about my vendors or talk about new products that I'm getting in. So that is the place to get kind of the inside scoop on what's coming in, new things. And same Evimero Marketplace on Facebook as well.
Perfect. And what's your physical address?
1072 Canton Street.
Perfect. And I just want to say too, a quick plug for your engagement on social media. We on the Visit Roswell Instagram page, you are always interacting. And of course, we love when that happens with our partners. So we appreciate it.
You guys have been so supportive. So
great. Well, it's our pleasure. And that's certainly what we're here for. And we wish you much success. And obviously we're a resource for you whenever we can be. And Natalia, pleasure having you. To all of our listeners, again, for information on things to do in Roswell, places to stay, places to eat, and everything in between, check out visitroswellga.com. And we will look forward to getting back with you all with another episode of Crafting Roswell soon. Thanks so much.